Have you ever walked into a room that felt loud, even when no one was talking? Have you ever felt overwhelmed not by sound, but by your own racing thoughts? In a world addicted to noise, a silent mindset feels like rebellion. But what if I told you that your most powerful moments will come when you say nothing at all? We often associate clarity with action, with doing more, asking more, achieving more. We believe that if we just keep moving, if we just keep trying, eventually the fog will lift. But the truth is, clarity doesn't come from motion, it comes from stillness. It doesn't arise when we're sprinting to the next goal. It arrives when we stop long enough to notice where we're actually headed. There's a reason we often get our best ideas in the shower, during a walk, or in the quiet of an early morning. It's because silence creates space for ideas to form, patterns to emerge, and truths to surface. The mind, like a glass of muddy water, only clears when it's left undisturbed. The more we stir it, the more we distort what's already there. We've been conditioned to believe that the answers are out there somewhere in the world, waiting to be found. So we chase, we search, we consume. But the most important answers aren't out there. They're within us, and we only hear them when the noise dies down. When the world grows quiet, our inner voice finally has room to speak. A silent mindset isn't a switch you flip, it's a discipline you develop. It's the choice to pause before you react, to sit with discomfort instead of numbing it with distraction, to allow the question to linger without rushing to fill it with the first convenient answer. In silence, we learn to listen not just to others, but to ourselves. And that kind of listening reveals more than any external source ever could. The problem is, most of us are afraid of silence. Not because of what it lacks, but because of what it reveals. Silence holds a mirror to our thoughts, our habits, our fears. It shows us what we've been running from. And yet, if we dare to sit with that mirror long enough, we start to see past the noise of insecurity and into the truth of who we are. When we embrace silence, we begin to see what truly matters. We start to separate the urgent from the important, the loud from the meaningful, the appealing from the necessary. In that space, priorities shift, values rise to the surface, and with it, a kind of clarity that no amount of brainstorming sessions or strategy meetings could ever produce. The leaders who make the greatest impact aren't the ones who always have something to say, they're the ones who know when to say nothing. They speak after they've thought. They act after they've reflected. They move not with noise, but with direction. And that direction comes from clarity born in silence. Even creativity, the spark we so desperately chase, thrives not in chaos, but in calm. The best artists, thinkers, and innovators often speak of moments of quiet inspiration. It's in the still moments that connections are made. It's in the pause between thoughts that breakthroughs occur. Silence isn't the absence of productivity, it's the birthplace of it. In silence, we discover the ability to see more clearly, not just outside of ourselves, but within. We start to recognize what we've been ignoring. We revisit ideas we dismissed too quickly. We challenge assumptions that once felt like truth. Silence gives us the lens through which everything else comes into focus. Clarity doesn't scream. It whispers. And unless we learn to quiet the noise, we'll never hear it speak. Strength is often misunderstood. We imagine it as something external, loud, assertive, immovable. But true strength doesn't always look like dominance. More often, it looks like restraint. It's the person who doesn't react out of impulse, who stays grounded in chaos, who chooses to respond instead of retaliate. That kind of strength doesn't come from muscles or bravado, it comes from stillness within. Inner stillness isn't the absence of thoughts. It's the presence of awareness. It's being so in tune with yourself that you no longer need to prove anything to anyone. When someone says something offensive, you don't explode because you know who you are. When life throws the unexpected at you, you don't spiral because your foundation is deeper than the surface storms. In a world that pushes urgency, stillness is a form of power. When everyone else is rushing to speak, the one who pauses commands the room. Not because they are louder, but because they are anchored. The person who takes time to breathe, to reflect, to observe before acting, that person becomes the center others gravitate toward. They are calm in a sea of noise, and calm is magnetic. Think about the strongest leaders you've ever seen. Chances are, they weren't the ones always talking, always reacting, always on edge. They were the ones who brought a sense of calm with them. A kind of energy that made you feel like everything would be okay even if nothing was. That energy doesn't come from a strategy or a script. It comes from within. It's born in moments of stillness, cultivated in silence, and refined through self-awareness. Stillness is what keeps your emotions from owning you. It gives you enough space between trigger and reaction to choose how you want to show up. It gives you power over your narrative. Without inner stillness, we become victims of our own volatility. We say things we regret. We make decisions we second guess. We burn bridges we never meant to set on fire. Stillness is what allows us to step back, see the bigger picture, and act from intention instead of emotion. When we quiet the internal chaos, we become better listeners. We stop listening to reply and start listening to understand. And in that shift, our relationships deepen. People feel heard. They feel safe. Because they're not just being spoken to, they're being held in a presence that isn't rushing to fix or fight. That kind of presence rooted in stillness is rare, and people don't forget it. Strength doesn't come from winning arguments or controlling outcomes. It comes from being okay, even when things don't go your way. From standing tall, even when no one agrees with you. From staying kind, even when others aren't. This level of emotional endurance doesn't come from training the body, it comes from training the mind to remain still when it wants to react. Stillness teaches us patience not as a passive waiting, but as an active trusting. Trusting that not everything needs to be forced. That not every situation needs your immediate input. That sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is wait. Not out of fear or indecision, but out of confidence that things unfold better when you're not rushing them. When the mind is still, the body follows. Stress loosens its grip. Breathing becomes fuller. Posture softens. You move through the world differently, not with tension, but with grace. And people notice. Not because you're trying to be noticed, but because strength that's rooted in stillness speaks for itself, even when you don't. Stillness doesn't mean disengagement. It means discernment. It means you know when to act and when to hold back, when to speak and when to listen, when to push and when to surrender. That kind of strength, quiet, composed, and deeply grounded, isn't easy to build. But once you find it, it becomes your greatest advantage. We often chase peace the same way we chase silence, by trying to eliminate the things around us. If only the deadlines disappeared. If only people stopped expecting so much. If only life would slow down. But that version of peace is fragile. It depends on external circumstances we can't control. And anything you can't control will eventually control you. That's why real peace isn't found in escaping pressure. It's found in changing the way we see it. Pressure in itself isn't the enemy. It's a signal. It tells us something is at stake. That we care. That we're being stretched. What makes pressure unbearable is not its presence, but our perspective of it. When we believe pressure means danger, we panic. When we believe it means growth, we shift into focus. It's the same force, but filtered through a different lens. Perspective is what allows two people to face the same storm and walk away with two completely different outcomes. One breaks, the other builds. The difference isn't strength, it's sight. The one who builds saw the storm as something shaping them. The one who broke saw it as something punishing them. Your peace depends on which view you adopt. We've been taught that peace is what comes after the chaos. After the deal closes. After the argument resolves. after we get what we want. But peace doesn't have to wait for the outcome. It can exist within the chaos if you've developed the perspective to hold it. It's the mindset that says, even if everything outside of me is shaking, I don't have to shake with it. Perspective doesn't remove problems, it reframes them. Suddenly, the delay isn't a failure, it's preparation. The obstacle isn't a block, it's a redirection. The pressure isn't an enemy, it's a mirror showing you what you still need to build. When you change the way you see what's in front of you changes, even if it doesn't move at all. Some of the most peaceful people you'll ever meet are also carrying the heaviest loads. It's not because they've found a shortcut. It's because they've developed a mindset that sees pressure as part of the process, not a problem to run from. They don't live waiting for life to become easier. They learn to become wiser, calmer, more centered. Not in spite of the pressure, but through it. When you believe pressure is proof you're failing, it breaks you. But when you believe pressure is proof you're growing, it fuels you. Perspective turns the same pressure that once crushed you into the very thing that refines you. And once that shift happens, peace becomes portable. You don't have to go somewhere to find it, you carry it with you. Peace is about attention. Where your attention goes, your energy follows. When your attention is consumed by fear, by comparison, by outcomes you can't control, peace becomes impossible. But when your attention is rooted in presence, in purpose, in what you can control, your breath, your posture, your next decision, peace returns, even when pressure remains. It's tempting to wish away pressure, to hope for a life where no one needs us, nothing goes wrong, and everything unfolds on schedule. But that kind of life doesn't exist. And if it did, it wouldn't be fulfilling. Pressure is the weight that makes us stronger if we learn to carry it well. Perspective is what teaches us how. You can't always control the size of the waves, but you can become a better swimmer. That's what perspective does. It turns the storm into a teacher. It turns resistance into resilience. And with that shift, peace becomes less about what's happening around you and more about what's steady within you. Noise isn't always loud. Sometimes it's subtle. It's the scrolling, the constant checking, the endless stream of opinions. It's the voice in your head reminding you of everything you haven't done yet. Noise isn't just what you hear, it's what keeps you from hearing what matters. And in a world overflowing with it, we start to lose our ability to know where to go and why we're going there. The problem with noise is that it feels urgent. It demands your attention. It convinces you that if you're not responding, you're falling behind. So we jump from one distraction to the next, constantly stimulated, but rarely still. We're reacting instead of responding, moving without meaning, and calling it progress. But when we finally pause, we realize we've been busy without being aligned. Silence doesn't demand anything from you, but it offers everything. It's not the absence of sound, it's the presence of space. Space to think clearly, to observe what you've been missing, to ask yourself the questions that actually matter. And perhaps most importantly, space to answer them honestly. That's why silence doesn't just quiet the noise, it guides you beyond it. When we're surrounded by noise, we lose connection with our inner compass. We start making decisions based on trends, not truth. We compare, we imitate, we chase things we never even paused to ask if we wanted. But silence brings us back. It strips away the voices that aren't ours. It creates a clearing where only what is essential remains, and that clearing becomes direction. In silence, we gain the ability to notice. To notice what energizes us and what drains us. To notice when we're out of alignment. To notice the small inner nudges we so often ignore. These subtle cues, so easy to miss in noise, become clear in silence. And those cues, when followed, lead us to decisions that feel rooted, not rushed. Direction doesn't come from louder voices. It comes from quieter ones, the voice of intuition, the whisper of values, the tug of purpose. These voices don't shout to be heard. They wait. and silence is what allows them to speak. Without it, we mistake popularity for wisdom. We confuse activity for meaning. And we move fast, but nowhere in particular. There's a reason we often say, "Let me think about it," and not, "Let me talk about it." Because deep down, we know direction isn't found in talking things through endlessly, it's found in sitting with them. In letting the noise fade until the truth becomes undeniable. The best insights don't arrive through force, they emerge when we allow silence to do its work. Silence is where you separate what's loud from what's lasting. A viral opinion may get your attention, but only your values deserve your action. In silence, you remember what you stand for, what you're willing to walk away from, what matters enough to protect. These aren't answers the world will give you. They're answers that live inside you, and silence is how you reach them. When we allow silence into our routines, whether through quiet mornings, mindful pauses, or simple moments of stillness, we invite clarity to lead us. We create a rhythm where reflection becomes part of the process, not something we squeeze in after burnout. And through that rhythm, direction becomes clearer, more confident, more purposeful. Noise will always be there. It's built into the fabric of our culture. But we don't have to let it own us. The more we choose silence not as escape, but as intention, the more we move with alignment. Because silence doesn't just calm the mind, it points the way forward. In a world that thrives on speed, stimulation, and sound, we forget the quiet power of stillness. We forget that clarity doesn't come when we move faster, but when we pause long enough to see. We forget that true strength isn't in controlling the chaos, but in remaining grounded within it. We forget that peace isn't a destination at the end of pressure, but a perspective we carry through it. Silence isn't emptiness. It's presence. It's the space where our thoughts settle, our purpose surfaces, and our direction becomes clear. A silent mindset isn't about shutting out the world. It's about tuning into what the noise has been drowning out. It's where wisdom replaces reaction, where intention replaces urgency, where the loud becomes less convincing, and the subtle becomes more profound. And the beautiful thing about stillness is that it spreads. One calm presence can shift an entire room. One person who's not in a rush to speak, not in a hurry to prove, not at war with the moment, can create space for others to slow down too. Stillness is contagious, not because it forces others to change, but because it reminds them of something they've forgotten they had. Choice. The choice to pause. The choice to reflect. The choice to respond with grace instead of noise. In choosing silence, we don't become passive, we become precise. In choosing stillness, we don't withdraw, we lead with clarity. Because when our mindset is quiet, our life becomes calm. When our mind is still, our path becomes steady. And when our presence is peaceful, the world around us begins to shift slowly, softly, but unmistakably. That is the silent mindset. That is the soothing life.